We, artists of any kind, have chosen a very difficult path for ourselves. AI wants to take the job of at least half of us, no one pays us enough, and society overall doesn't respect our job, unless we are insanely good at what we're doing. But why is that? Why can't we just craft in peace and be seen as any other adult doing their work? Why only we get the "no, but what's your real job" treatment when talking about what we do? As if creating was an activity not suited for adults. And it's funny, because that's what we were doing for the most of the history. So what changed? Is there a reason why artistic pursuits are seen less than? Actually, there are few, and today we're going to talk about them. But first, if you're new here, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Oak, and on this channel I talk about art and humanity from a perspective of a writer, crafter, and history lover. If you like this video, consider giving it a like and subscribe to my Broke Oak Studio. Arts and crafts, as we call it now, is a category of activities that, outside of our artistic circles, is seen as something perfectly suited for children, and just for them. Pinterest is full of step-by-step instructions how to make all kinds of things. Articles praise all the positive effects creating have on young minds, and craft stores really often go fully for childish aesthetics. And don't get me wrong, kids should do crafts. It really helps their development. But what I'm trying to say here is that there is that age-dictated limit of acceptance. If you're a modern adult wanting to do something creative without being seen as unserious, you have only few options, and that's all. And to be honest, I would argue that even those few things are not treated as crafts, but rather as something to relax after work, which suggests that it's just a small thing to do at the end of the day and not really a creative activity. Because, once again, arts and crafts are for children. Arts and crafts. This term itself shows how much things change in past centuries, or even decades. Today, when we think of crafts, we picture paper projects or something with the use of trash. But some time ago, craft as a term meant the same as trade. And no, I'm not talking about commerce. I'm talking about Part 1. Disappearance of trades. We humans have a talent for creating things, and we were creating them for thousands of years. It's only natural that with time all those creative processes would be improved and passed down from generation to generation. First in families and communities, and later in the trade system. Or should I say, guilds. The guilds were the association of artisans, and sometimes merchants, who were overseeing the practice of their trade on a specific territory. Those institutions, though organized in various ways, could be found everywhere in the world. Skilled members of those guilds would take in apprentices, usually very young people, children even, to learn the trade. Depending on the country, the apprenticeship period looked differently. In some countries it was just 1 or 2 years, in others longer. But in most cases, young students would live in master's home, sometimes get paid, and help the master in their everyday work, learning in the process. This way of passing down artistic skills existed from the dawn of time up to 19th century, when it got disturbed and eventually almost lost thanks to Industrial Revolution and schooling system. You see, the modern education system is less than 200 years old. It's known as Prussian model and became popular worldwide at the end of 19th century. This model required every children to go to school, which means less and less young people have been becoming apprentices. Soon academia was born, which popularized seeing a specific kind of knowledge as better than anything else, causing a divide between practical and artistic skills, and analyzing and talking about them from a well-informed, math-tinted intellectual standpoint. Which, as you can guess, didn't help trades at all. Even though at first school curriculum included some practical lessons, with time those begin to disappear, replaced by more higher class education sounding topics. As Martin Butler wrote in his blog on FreeQD, feeling at home with a craft skill is surely as important as being numerate or literate. It can be a significant source of well-being for many children, as it was for me. These very practical subjects, however, went out of fashion and became the butt of jokes. Having a certificate of secondary education in woodwork was regarded as the high of non-achievement at school. Woodwork became something called design and technology, which intellectualized the subject so that design, planning, and evaluation were what counted, rather than the practical skills acquired. There was no place for systematic learning of traditional skills. The act of making a physical object was downgraded in favor of what was written about it, and woodwork fell victim to academic and non-academic divide. Nowadays, subjects like that are almost non-existent on primary level, and vocational schools have the opinion of being the worst option, simply for the fact that attending them makes you seem poor or dumb. Again, the problem of academia. It has real effects on how society treats artistic and practical skills, and it becomes worse and worse with each generation. As Dr. Brian Thoma wrote in his Perceptions of Craftsmanship, Past and Present article, which I recommend you read in full, especially if you want to see in detail how learning a craft looked like in past centuries. Employers and educators believed that the more could be done to educate society in the value of the craft area and the high level of skill achieved by the modern apprentice for events such as World Skills Competition. It was noted by one educator that the word craft has been appropriated by the arts community, with those in the traditional craft area now designated the title of tradesperson, a comparatively pejorative term which was seen by one interviewee as an indication of the decline of vocational education in Irish society. Many scholars offer examples of this trend in countries around the world, where vocational education is seen as inferior. It's a phenomenon I also see and have experienced in Polish education system. Here, after 8 years of primary school, you need to choose one of 3 different institutions. Liceum, that basically works like a preparation for university, Technicum, which offer usually practical courses but taught in a very academic way, and Zawodówka, which teaches vocational skills in a very practical manner and is indeed seen as the worst of all of 3. Also, the art community Dr. Brian Thoma speaks of is another important part of the conversation, mostly because Part 2, the sexism in the arts. When you think of arts with capital A, you think of old paintings. Girl with a pearl earring, Mona Lisa, ceiling in Sistine Chapel. Sculptures and poetry may also come to your mind, as well as anything else that counts as fine arts. What you probably don't think of, and what wasn't counted as fine art, or even just art, were millions of patchwork blankets, beautifully sewn clothes, laces and hand-woven textiles, and anything else that came from the hands of women. For centuries, the labor of daughters, wives and mothers went unnoticed, while at the same time the bar was high, not only for the household duties and the standard of behavior, but also art made by them. After all, for most of human history, women were the one who dressed the whole family and cared about their image. And one thing we can say about societies from the past is that image was very important. Sewing, embroidering, knitting, quilting, weaving, and many other crafts that require a lot of skill were seen as a mere element of everyday life, a product to be consumed. No matter that the process of creating those things took the same amount of time, if not more, as a portrait made by Sondul. And because all those crafts became so heavily associated with women, or more specifically, the role they were forced to play in society, those crafts start to be seen as an obstacle on the path to women's rights. As we can read in this article titled Doing Feminism, the History of Craft Making and the Performance of Gender. As Parker notes in her feminist study of the difference between arts and crafts, artworks were created as a merchandise and were objects of value. Crafts were produced in the domestic realm for love, making gendered differences in addition to economic ones. A close look at art history reveals the gender biases that privilege men's high art over women's low craft, even indirectly, can be realized as a device to argue the universal powerlessness of women. It's worth noting that almost every wave of feminism had an issue with those domestic crafts, though in a different way. The first women fighting for their rights tried to distance themselves from domesticity by mocking those who still sew, embroider and knit. Second wave, as the mentioned earlier article puts it, created a paradox for those who want to engage in feminist politics and still spend time at their sewing machine. Third wave slowly accepted crafts like embroidery and patchwork as a medium through which women could protest in additional, more aesthetic and passive way. And the fourth wave welcomed back all things feminine, which caused the popularization and capitalization of those long-neglected crafts. Unfortunately, it's still not a final victory for historically feminine arts. Today, even though historical pieces became discovered and displayed in museums, the sexism keeps floating in the air, especially the one surrounding some of the older curators and critics. But one can hope situation will soon change. It would be a great loss if some of the old techniques didn't get the attention they deserve and end up forever locked in archives, or even worse, were forgotten. Speaking of which, Part 3. Colonialism. UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List was created to ensure better protection and awareness of important practices, knowledge, buildings and artifacts all around the world. It got established in 2008 and currently has 788 positions. Just think about how many more things could be on that list if it existed since 16th century. I don't think it's talked about often enough. How much was lost? Both stuff we know about and the ones we no longer do. The crafts perfected for generations vanished, just like that. Things like Native American basket weaving technique that was so tight and sturdy it was waterproofed and could be used for cooking. Or Filipino gold weaving technique used for making absolutely gorgeous and full of detail jewelry. Damascus steel and Dhaka muslin, and so much more. By the way, I link all the sources and some more in my reference doc linked below, and I really encourage you to dig into them or to organize some internet excavations on your own, as there is so much to be found and read about. It's heartbreaking to see how many technologies get lost in time or by someone's intervention. Imagine how much we could learn from all those skilled masters of craft. It would be fascinating to see them work, to analyze how they do things and how they think. Though I'm not sure everyone would appreciate it, mostly because of Part 4, the digital era. In previous 3 parts, I discussed reasons why arts and crafts are no longer treated as serious as they once were, and those 3 reasons were obviously morally bad. But this one is more nuanced. As they say, the tool itself is not good nor bad. The way it's used is what matters. And I should know that. I'm a digital artist that survived Facebook art groups and old DeviantArt. I was there, Gandalf. I was there 3000 years ago. Drawing digitally, when doing it fair, is not much different from traditional way. Yes, there is copy-paste, Ctrl-Z, and I'm not slowed by the nature of dealing with physical materials, but other than that, I'd say it's pretty similar. But the AI, on the other hand, Well, I'd like to leave that specific topic for the future video. Now, I want to focus on tools that don't replace work, but speed it up or make it easier. Things like CNC routers, laser cutters, and 3D printers. I never got the chance to use them, personally, but I've seen enough home decor and repair videos to know how handy they can be. But what if someone used them to create products and later advertise them as handmade? Or run in a crafters contest? In an introduction to the article titled "The Art of Craft in the Digital World," we read, "At a recent regional juried crafts show, a woodworker received an award for a table featuring inlaid maple leaves. Kudos to the craftsman." But wait, on closer examination, one sees that each maple leaf is identical, perfect, and the inlay is razor-edged precise. The woodworker's website boasts that his shop's work is achieved by a skilled craftsman. We'd assume skilled at hammer and chisel, when in fact the skill would be at managing algorithms. Though seen in a milieu of handcraft, this table was the product of digital fabrication. There is that feel of disappointment, betrayal even. I'm not saying 3D modeling and writing algorithms are not skills by their own rights. Heck, if I had a 3D printer, I would use it to make my own sculptures too. But there is definitely a point to which such work can be truly appreciated when mixed with handmade stuff. We just don't know where exactly that point is yet. One thing's for sure, there is something distancing in overuse of those tools. I've noticed it in the doll customizing community, where the whole craft lays in the sculpting and sewing things for dolls, painting them new faces and creating new hairstyles that look better quality than factory-made ones. At first, 3D printed were only parts hard to sculpt or replicas of factory elements that got lost, as most of customized dolls are used toys. But soon enough, some of the creators started to print accessories and large body modifications like mermaid tails and wings. It was cool to see, but once novelty worn off, each new video of those creators appeared a bit more soulless. Watching the creating process wasn't as fun as it was previously. The whole experience got dulled. Going back to the article mentioned earlier, artist T. Brice Verdant has worked for 30 years with power tools, each guided by his hands. Having first mastered marquetry, his work now is primarily inlaid jewelry made from recycled materials with provenance. Ebony from an ancient shipwreck, an antique piano keys, copper piano string windings, scraps from musical instrument makers. Each new scrap he scavenges is repurposed, upcycled into a work of wearable art, by hand. His objection to digital fabrication is that in a perfectly cut laser image, for example, there is no hand of the maker evident. Raku artist Richard Foye adds, "The mark of the hand will always add value to a pot made by hand. Pottery has been made by machines for more than 2 centuries, but this type of ware always lacks something, which I believe most people can distinguish. This applies to most craftsmanship. When hand is evident, so is heart and soul. Creativity is instrumental, not divorced from the making," Easterly remarks. "You invent while you make. You think with your hands. The carving thinks with your hands." We want reassurance that spontaneity is still part of the process, that humanness is not lost. Part 5. The Dystopia of Modern Times. You wake up in the morning. There is no time for breakfast, so you take a sip of coffee and hope for the best. You commute for at least an hour and rush into your work, where coworkers greet you with the same tired smile as yours. The superior gives you a stern look because you're not in your work clothes yet and you start in 5 minutes. For the next 8 or 10 or 12 hours, You go through the motions, doing a job of at least 3 people. No, you don't fill in for anyone. There is just not enough workers. If you work in the office, your brain turns into a mush. If you work in services, all prayers with you. At the end, you're hungry, tired, and fully aware that you will not be the one picking fruits of your labor. At the way home, you're bombarded with tons of ads. AI-generated women praises the durability and uniqueness of factory-made 100% natural clay pots. Calm voice that maybe belongs to a faceless voice actor, but maybe got generated too, sings about kitchen tiles and decor that will take you on a journey to the past, when days were slow, sky sunny, and people had no worries. The advertisements show you 5 workers from the faraway land, smiled, slowly walking through the field, as if they really have time for that. You finally get home, but ads follow you. They're in your computer and on TV screen, screaming, ringing for attention. The sink is full, your favorite cup is broken, and you don't really have the energy to cook anything nice. You sit, finally, and sink into the couch, into yourself. Your head hurts. You promised yourself that you will try this new hobby, but you don't have the power to start. I'll do it on the weekend. You lie to yourself, knowing full well that you spend your Saturday finally cleaning the flat. And Sunday? Well, mentally you'll be at work already. There is no time for creativity in modern times. Creating is a process full of experiments and failures, multiple tries and rests. Honing one's artistic skill takes time, and fully grasping a craft is an endeavor that can take the large portion of one's life. We don't have time for that. If we even, somehow, for some reason, allow ourselves some creativity, we want nice results instantly. Otherwise, it's simply a waste of time. Nowadays, factories don't even care about the niceness aspect. They just produce. Shein forced their workers to create new products every day, while your grandma saw and then embroidered one dress in a span of a month. Your mother still has it hidden in the wardrobe. It looks amazing and it's still functional. Your fast fashion blouse, on the other hand, will get destroyed after one wash. If the amount of tasks you do in one day equals the labor of 3 people, you can't possibly imagine doing a task of 1 person for a month. And ultimately, I think this is the reason crafts and art are seen as an activity for children. They are the only ones who have the time. Part the last one. Children's fantasies. What were you doing in the kindergarten? Maybe you tried jewelry making by putting some uncooked pasta on a string? Or learn how to make some amazing looking pastry with Play-Doh? Maybe you saw an apron for a doll, with a giant plastic needle and some felt with already made holes for the thread. Only children have the time to experiment creatively, to try various crafts and choose what they like. But they are still children, much younger than those who centuries ago were starting their apprenticeship. You can't really give a hammer to 5-year-old and teach it metalwork. And those wooden blocks will end up in a small mouth before they go under the carving tools. Hence, the craft turned into crafts, and art began to be associated only with drawing. The concept of handmade became infantilized, both because of the mentioned earlier nature of children's crafts, but also because doing anything creative, taking time to do so, became associated with kids. And seeing how it is, how could you call yourself a responsible adult if you want to waste time on your own, instead of grinding for someone else? But there is light at the end of the tunnel. Young people learn how to sew and knit. They grow to appreciate old and well-made things, share knowledge about their cultural heritage, and care about their stuff, even if those require mending. So many things happen in the world right now, it's clear to see that we're tired of this bullshit, and the changes are coming. We might have time to create yet. The respect for human arts may come back. And yes, I'm aware that the chance for the slower living to come back is as big as the chance for the world to explode, which doesn't sound all that exciting. But there is hope. And if you need some more of it, after you finish the next session of doomscrolling, read about extinction burst and hold on. If you'd like to show off your passion and creations, join my Discord, where all the channels wait for your creative input. That is all for today. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope you'll have a lovely day. Bye bye!